when Attorney General William Barr released a summary to Congress saying that Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller found no evidence of collusion between Donald Trump and any member of the Russian government, the people who'd been pushing this narrative for the last 2 years and a half, well, they went berserk. But instead of moving on and focusing on governing, they've doubled down on their claims of conspiracy, making the look, it's really a look of desperation. I don't know how else to say it. I'm joined by Farron Cousins, editor of the National Trial Lawyer magazine. You know, as I watch this meltdown, it's becoming more and more ridiculous looking. I think of this little, what they call him, he got the name Pencil Neck. I don't know who, was it Trump gave him that? And it sounds like something Trump would say. Trump's odious enough to say something like that. But this little character now does not understand how much he's hurting the Democratic Party. Right. That's the problem here. He's killing the Democratic Party little by little, 1,000 cuts. What's your take?
Adam Schiff, he really did. This is the only reason people know his name, is because he's been pushing this for 2 years, saying we're going to get him on collusion, we're going to get him on conspiracy, for treason, for all of this. Trust me, Adam Schiff, and I am going to be the one to lead this crusade. And now, you know, granted, we haven't seen the full report, but if William Barr was wrong in his summary/not summary, as he's calling it now, that collusion did happen, Mueller would have come out and said that. He would have corrected it and said, I didn't say it. But Schiff has said he refuses to accept it. He will not take that. He knows it happened, and he's going to prove it somehow.
We have to believe that Mueller now is the fraud. I mean, in order to believe little pencil neck here, we have to believe that Mueller is the fraud. Here, as I watch this grow, I think of, you know, it's so conspiratorial. It's almost like the Apollo, the landing never took place on the moon. It's almost like the 9/11 truthful, you know, the truthers, or you know, the grassy knoll was a real deal. And as I watch this little character looks more and more ridiculous. And it's like he has no sense of self. He doesn't have any self-awareness. But I'm not, you know, I don't care about self. I don't care what it does to this little guy. But what it does to the Democratic Party is important. What Maxine Waters does with her every state, you're killing a party little by little. And it's got to be, you know, the Democrats have got to become vibrant again. And this character is killing them. I don't know how, I mean, that's the most bothersome thing about this story to me.
Well, so if Adam Schiff and the few out there who are still claiming a conspiracy now, some kind of cover-up with the report, if all they would do is just say, listen, we're going to fight to get the full Mueller report released, and then everybody can decide for themselves. But instead, he takes it the extra step of saying, no, they're lying, something's in there. And look, there's probably a lot in the full report, but it's going to be stuff that's more embarrassing than it is, ooh, we've got a criminal conspiracy. Like with Comey, when he came out after the end of the email investigation with Hillary and said she was reckless, she was careless, you know, basically calling her a fool, but said, but there's nothing to prosecute.
But exactly. Just like there really was nothing to prosecute with Hillary is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because there's no intent. There's nothing there that's criminal. That's what they found here in a different kind of way. Nobody ever talks about the need for intent, criminal intent. Mueller is not an idiot. If you think back the number of stories we've done on Mueller, we've always said, he kind of calls it like he sees it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't agree with him on it. And a lot of things I just totally disagreed with. I wish he'd gone further. But, I mean, truthfully, there has to be a disclosure of the report.
Yes.
Now, the Republicans, just like the Democrats, have Schiff, this little freak, that's taking him down to the abyss. The failure of the Republicans to disclose this report is ridiculous. Of course there's bad stuff in it. Trump does a lot of bad stuff. The people around him do a lot of bad things. But it's got to come out.
Right.
And so that's the next thing that we ought to be talking about, right?
Right. Well, we had the House of Representatives just a week ago a vote of 420-0 saying, let's release the report. Let's get it out there to the public. Our side believes it's going to vindicate us. Your side believes it vindicates them. Whatever it is, the public agrees. Get that report out there. And here's the thing. that is actually bad for Trump is the latest poll numbers out yesterday said his poll numbers haven't moved.
Yeah.
And it's because the public now thinks you're hiding something else in the report.
But there's another part of those polls, and I thought they were interesting. It is that 68% of the American public says, enough.
Yeah.
We're tired of it. We don't want to hear the little, we don't want to hear it anymore. And so this character, Schiff, is getting ready to move in a full-blown investigation rather than talking about jobs, rather than talking about education, rather than talking about the weapons industry on just a spending spree, rather than talking about the budget. We're talking about something that 68% of the public is tired of talking about, and Pelosi doesn't have enough sense to say, hey, wait a second, let's get this under control. It's you know what, I got to tell you, you've heard me say so many times, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, but I have a real recognition that both parties need to be strong. And right now, this is killing the Democrats, and nobody has enough sense to say anything about it.
Well, it absolutely is. And you hit it right on the head there, because Schiff could have come out and said, listen, I'm in charge of the Intelligence Committee in the House. I understand that. We're going to get the full report to you. Don't worry. We're working on that. We've got our staffers on it. In the meantime, let's talk about health care. Let's talk about the fact that we have people dying in this country because they can't afford their prescription medications.
Right.
We're going to focus on legislating and passing bills. And in the background, we're working on getting the report, so don't worry.
There is only it's like anybody who writes books, anybody who produces movies will tell you you can only throw so much negative in, okay? Then you have to lift the story up. The Democrats don't understand that they better lift the story up and take control of this little character, Schiff, and the folks that are all around him like Maxine Waters saying, yeah, impeachment. It's crazy talk. And they need to get busy telling the American public what they stand for. If they don't, they're in big trouble in 2020.
Well, I do want to add, too, the Democrats running for president right now, they have all actually done a pretty good job of not falling into this trap. Because honestly, Trump wants him in the trap, too, because he kind of has the upper hand at the moment. But then it's hard for these Democrats. They're only going to be able to escape it for so long that are running for president, because then you have the media. And that's the other half of the story.
They force the narrative. Let's talk about that. Here's the other part of the story. It's not just the politics behind it. It's the media. You remember Geraldo Rivera, where they were cutting into the wall and they were going to find Al Capone's treasure. Do you remember that? Yeah. The American public, they were focused on it. The ratings were incredible. Everybody's waiting for Al Capone's treasure. And they got in there, and there was a bunch of nothing. And that's what the media has done here, a bunch of nothing. And what incenses me about this story, I got to tell you, when I think of the media, this quote, somebody makes the quote in the media, leadership, well, it's time to pivot now to 2020. Now, when I heard that, it made me so angry. In other words, let's move on. We've started a Cold War with Russia, okay? We've created this fantasy story out of nothing other than we've put these jerk legs on television who are really the fringe of conspiracy on our MSNBC and CNN every day. We've bastardized the truth, and now it's almost like I have this visual of a hyena that's now moving on from a dead carcass in the Sangretti and saying, we're going to move on to the next carcass. That's how angry this thing makes me. What's your take?
You and I had the same response seeing that, because when it's time to pivot to 2020, you spent 2 years, and admittedly, you had some people out there who would talk about it when there was a new development, and say, okay, well, here's the thing that happened. We're going to talk about this now, on to the next issue. But you had other people who were all in. They were 100% all Mueller, all collusion, all
CNN,
the time.
MSNBC,
right.
Rachel Maddow, I swear to God, started sounding like Alex Jones. Her big eyes, her frenzy. It was crazy, and it's still continuing as we speak.
Well, because there's a big difference between going out there and reporting on what's actually happening. But then, and this is the problem these networks fell into, They bring on the people who assert without the evidence that, no, Trump is wholly owned by Vladimir Putin. I know it, you know it, we know it. That's crossing the line. That destroys the credibility, and you're speculating, not reporting on what is known.
Well, it's just like Schiff saying, I have the evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, show us the evidence. Instead, MSNBC, the worst, and I got to tell you, I used to work with Rachel Maddow. You remember the days of radio, America, we worked together. It's like she's this metamorphosis that's taken place. I don't even recognize it anymore. Sometimes I say, Rachel, easy. Take this jackleg off of your show. They're obviously not credible. Quit talking about something and let's talk about the news. I just think we've lost ground there, and it's going to take MSNBC and CNN a long time. Their numbers are crashing and continue to crash because it's a believability problem. Thank you for joining me, okay, Farron?
Thank you.